O tira tēnā no tātou katoa e te whānau mihi ana kia koutou hui hui mai nei. Wa tūhono mai nei ki tēnā o tātou nei pāhotana i tēnei ahi. Te rātua nāhu, te rā te kau, o te marama o haki hia o tira, tēnei rā te mutina o te wiki, te rāmere, te praere. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Nau mai kia Whaioranga tātou whainei, te orana moa tātou mokopuna. Whānau kaimahi o tira moa tātou nei kaumātu. Nō reira ke tīmata hia tō tātou nei kaupapa. O tira tūwhera hia mai rāna tatau o te ora, kia whae ko te ora, kia piki te ora, kia mau ki te ora. Te ora a mātou mokopuna, te ora a tātou whānau kaimahi. Hei orana moa tātou nei kaumātu. Unuhia te tapu, kia wātea, kia māhia. Te nākau te hinengaro te wairua no hoki. Kia owhiti whakamaua kia tīna haumi e hui e, tai ki e. Nō reira, tēnā koutou te manako nui kei te ora mai koutou. Ahakoa keihia koutou, ahakoa e ahana koutou. Ētahi o a tātou kōhanga reo, kua tūwhera. Kei roto mātua tāmaki, ētahi kua tūwhera. O tira koutou, kei te whānui tana o te motu, ko koutou pōkai kahaturu nei ki te ope, ki te whānau o tātou nei tamariki, ki te reo, ki o tātou nei tikana. Harai te mea me a te whakako, engari ma te noho Māori o te āhua, ka tāia e tātou e nei āhuatana katoa, te whakatipu i a tātou tamariki kia tū pakari, kia tū maia, ai roto i te āhuru mōwai o te whānau, o tira o te haukaina. Nō reira, we are so fortunate today e te whānau that we have our kai kōrero, Nanny Iri Tawhiwhirangi, I waimaria a hau ki te kapo iaia. Nō reira, kārekau te hia whakarona mai ki au, I mau iau iaia i nā nahi, nō reira, e mihi ana kia aia, o tira kia huria ki tātou kia aia, me āna kōrero kia tātou, mo te āhua o tēnei mea, o te uruta, and living in this new world of COVID. Nō reira kia huria ki tātou. Tira tēnā no tātou e te iwi nei mai hoki mai kia Whaioranga tō tātou nei pautuawha o te kaupapa o te Kōhanga Reo. Te Whaioranga me te haumarutana o tātou nei mokopuna, o tātou nei whānau, o tira o tātou nei kaimahi. Nō reira, kua tino waimari e tātou e te whānau ki tō tātou kai kōrero e whai ake nei. He mārei kura, he whae, he māma, he kōka, he kaiwhakaihu waka, he wahine kua roa nei e kōkiri ana i tēnei kaupapa te Kōhanga Reo. Ko ia hoki te tono me ki, te kai uruni, i ona rā, kia tūai tēnei kaupapa e ora tonu ana i tēnei wā. Nō reire te whānau, kia kaua tātou e takaroa, kia huri tonu atu tātou ki tō tātou nei kahurangi, ki tō tātou nei kuia, ki tō tātou nei Nanny Iritana tēnā rawāti koe.
Tēnā koe, o tira tēnā koutou e kāpai nei i te kaupapa nei.
E pēhe ana koe?
Kei te ora tonu. Tātou iwa te kau mātoru, kei te ora tonu, me mihi atu rā. Ki tēnei ao e huri nei, hoi anō, kei koni tono au. Kia ora.
Ka pai me te mihi anō ki taku Nanny hoki kei porirua Nanny Claire, kua tai ki te iwa te kaumārua. Nō reira, kōrua, tērā riana e mihi ana kia koutou e noho nei ki te pane o te ika. Nō reira, kua rono koe, kua kite koe. Ai tēnei āhua o te mate urutā, i etahi wā, e ki ana pēr etahi, e whakawehe ana i wā tātou nei whānau. So, etahi ki ana, nā mea, ka whaiwero, etahi kāre whaiwero. Etahi kōrero ana mo te tinorana tiratana, etahi e kōrero ana mo te Whaioranga. Heha o whakaro, what are your thoughts, Nan, on this this challenge that has been laid before us as te iwi Māori, and I suppose as the kaupapa o te Kōhanga Reo?
Kia ora, hoi anō, he nui ngā kaupapa o tēnei ao e whakararu nei a tātou. Ko te ngārara e kōrero nei tātou e te COVID, koe a tētahi o ngā kaupapa me kia e Kei mua ia tātou, I ngā roto ngā tau e tūmaini. You know, I just want to say to us, COVID is only one of the issues that are affecting all of us. And kōhanga and tātou Māori nei, we're caught up in it, whether we like it or not. Some of us like it, some of us don't like it. But that's everybody's right, except I want to say, when we talk about, I don't want anyone telling me what to do. I want my own rights, etc., etc. And I agree with that, because I'm a person that's always said, I make up my mind about what I do. However, can I just say to us, e hikama, we're getting caught up in the taha oranga, our responsibility to each other, ngā ture mai, the government's impact on us. So we're confronted today in a whole lot of things that are weighing heavily on us. And so we need to take time to be able to think through this. Ā whānau nei, ā hapu nei, ā iwi nei, ā Kōhanga Reo nei, ā kura. Everybody has to be able to consider where we're at and what is tomorrow about. Because I want to say to us, tomorrow will never be the same as yesterday. It won't change us as Māori. It won't change us as whānau and hapu and kōhanga and kura. Won't change us in terms of what we belong to. But what will change is how we actually front up to the many changes in this tau huri. The world is not going to be the same, folks, as it was yesterday. But that doesn't mean to say we're not going to be here. We are. But there's a difference in how we deal with these issues. I mean, COVID is only one of them. It's a big one. But climate change is another one. Our struggling families is another one. So if we think the world is going to be any better tomorrow, it isn't. It's going to be far more challenging. And the real issue is how we look after each other. How we look after each other. So yes, I understand that there are a few people, and it's only a few, but that's their right, who don't want to have anything to do with this COVID. Well, can I say to you folks, we have the right to make the decisions for ourselves, but we have the responsibility that when we make those decisions, we are not endangering other people. Koe rake te mea. We talk about whānau, and in my whānau, I need to protect myself in order to protect my whānau. It's no use me saying, well, I don't care about anyone else. I want, when we talk about tino rangatiratanga, I get a bit concerned that sometimes we use Māori terms to make a case that is not really the key at this moment. Tino rangatiratanga, my right to make a decision about myself, my kohanga whānau to make the decision about themselves. But folks, we're in a different world. We're still whānau, we're still Māori, we're still, whakapapa wise and all the rest of it. But the issue today is, how do I carry myself? It's about every single one of us. I don't want anyone telling me what to do. I need to be able to ask and find out. But when I find out that if I don't get vaccinated, that means I could be harming my family, or harming my friends, or harming my whānau, or harming my hapu. It's not just about me. If it wasn't about me, I wouldn't mind, because I'm not impacting on anyone else. But the difference today is the decision I make is not only about protecting me. It is about me being able to protect those that come in contact with me. So I understand the concerns, and I understand people's rights, but there's a responsibility that goes with your right. Responsibility is the decision you make. Does it only affect you? or does it affect people who come in contact with you? And you know, tātou katoa nei, it's not in the whānau, it's not just about one member of the whānau, it's about everybody looking after everybody. So, mena whakaaro Māori ana tātou in how we look after each other, not just me, it's not just about me, it's about me in the I roto te poho o te whānau. And so, one of the issues that is of concern is the impact on our kaiako, who could actually be in a position of not having the vax, and it's a decision that is the kaiako's decision, but at the end of the day, the kaiako has a huge contact with ngā mokopuna, with the whānau members, and how do we look after each other? Is it just about me looking after me? Never in Māoridom was about any one person worrying about themselves. It was about how everybody else could also take. So I'm saying, you know, that give our people time. Don't hammer them for what they're doing. Support them, allow them time to think it through and understand, because these things are coming on top of us flat out. You wake up at something else. And so, you know, people, not just our own people, but people generally, not just in New Zealand, across the world. You know, and I know, that tomorrow is never going to be the same in the world as it was yesterday. So we're going to have to make a different thinking. But the main thing is, as long as we don't stop thinking about looking after each other. That's really what I see. And, you know, I just want to say something else here. This pandemic, e kōrero nei tātou, this COVID, you know, I've lived nearly 100 years. Back in 1930, the big pandemic then was tuberculosis, TB. And every home, if they had somebody with TB, they built a little shed outside, enough for a bed and thing, and that person was put there, not allowed to have anything to do with us, was cut off, and somebody took food out there, had their own dishes, had their own blankets, and they never came anywhere near us, and none of us went anywhere there. We were locked up from each other. I can remember, I was only about 7 or 8 at the time. I can remember those huts outside the homes where TB was killing our people. So that was that kind of COVID concept in the 1930s. A few years later, along came polio. And so polio, they had to have injections to be able to protect them. So this sort of thing we've got today is not new. It's just a new brand of ngarara that is in front of us. But the bottom line is caring, as I say, it was awful, those huts. We weren't allowed to go anywhere near. That person wasn't allowed to come out. Their own blankets, their own... That was that kind of pandemic in the 1930s. But TB was handled because in the end they got injections. Same with polio, injections. So what we're dealing with today is not something new. It's just a different brand of germ, a different brand of ngarara that's facing. But at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying to us? Think carefully. Look after yourself. Absolutely. But also, our Māori and you, we also look after each other. If you think about whānau, you think about your hapu, everybody looked after everyone. And if the old people said, "Aneke," to protect us, we listened. So in many ways, it's just 100 years on, and we've got the same issues confronting us. And it is a concern, because the generation today is a younger generation. Didn't know about, you know, all the things that went on in the past to protect ourselves and look after ourselves. I quite don't know, Hataku, and at the end of the day, I'm not here to say you must do this or the other thing, because you've got to think about it for yourself. But when you're thinking about yourself, our Māori nei, we always think about all those that come in contact with us.
Oh man, hea tāhua we rā kōrero, and absolutely, tika ana tau, this is nothing new, but maybe, like you said, he rea ana hau tēnei, he ao hau tēnei, and maybe the infrastructure o tō tātou nei ao Māori isn't as strong as it once was. And I roto I te Kōhanga Reo, kei reira tonu, we're hanging in there with our kaumata, we're hanging in there with our tikana, and ki te whānau ki wa tātou nei mokopuna. So I'm just looking at... Yeah.
I feel for the kaiako, and that's their right, because they're the ones that are actually looking after the mokopuna and the reo. But they are just there representing the total whānau.
That's what I wanted. That has been a kind of a kōrero with our kaiako, and e aroha nau ki a rātou that I'm doing the best I can to protect your mokopuna, and o kōrero mai o tohu mai ki au, Kōhanga Reo is about whānau. Kōhanga Reo ko te whānau, ko te hapu, it's about all of us. And sometimes I think our whānau, dare I say it, take their role for granted in terms of supporting the kaimahi and supporting the people that e poi nei I wā rātou nei tamariki. So, this has been a good wake-up call in some respects to bring our whānau back into being active and to participate in our kaupapa. And so, like you said, that there's responsibility there.
I just want to say to us, one of the things that I think is missing today, it's not a criticism, but it is a fact that when this kohanga started, and you remember, boy, I was talking to you in the car one day talking about whānau, and kei te maumahara koe, when you weren't quite sure that whānau was the answer, well, you are sure now. The point about kohanga, it's the responsibility of the total whānau. I bring my mokopuna, then I am part of the decision-making. Whānau are actually the employers. The whānau are the employers of the people who work there. The employers are very important, ngā kaiako, ngā kaitiaki. But somehow or other, the whānau are not as taking as much responsibility as they had for looking after their kaiako and their kaimahi. On the other hand, some kaiako, some kaimahi, think they're the sole answer for the well-being of the whānau. We've got to get out of that. That's not the way Maori operate. It's the kaiako, the whānau, everybody looking after each other. When you get anyone that is making decisions for the whānau, nā te ao Pākehā e rā tifanga. Not Māori. The whānau who bring their children there, if they didn't bring their children, we wouldn't have a kohanga. Koeira te timatanga o tēnei kaupapa, I hāngai atu ki ngā whānau katoa. They brought their mokopuna and their children. Those people make the decision about who they would employ to look after them, how they would look after them, etc., etc. I don't think today, it's not a criticism of our people. It's actually a result of operating in the way the Pākehā operate. Unqualified people, they do it, and this is the way you do it. And so our people, all big ups to them, that they're still holding on to this kaupapa the best way how. But in the end, a lot of the way we're holding on to it is what the government says we should be doing. Koeira kia te raru nui. Even bigger, in my book, than this COVID, because if we lose control of taking responsibility, everybody, the whānau, the kaiako, the ngā kaimahi, we've got administrators looking, working hard to look after our people. But in the end, they are the employers employees rather, of the whānau, not of the government, but we're a long way from where this movement started. But I say a big kia ora to our people working in the kōhanga, whatever role they've got, really hanging there against, changes. COVID's just one of them. Struggling families, another one, unemployment, or, health. What worries me, folks, is that every issue about people, I'm sick and tired of going on the news. Maori's the problem in health. Maori's the problem in education. Maori's the problem. And I think, why are we always being seen? What are we doing to stop being the problem? Very hard, because at the end of the day, we all need to have some income. We all need to be working. And so kōhanga, like kura, like every Maori entity, we're not the only ones struggling, folks. All Maori are. And, when we look at COVID, let's ask ourselves, why are 80%, 90% of Maori agreeing to this vaccine? Why are they? Because they want to protect themselves and those that they come in contact with. If we can focus on that, it's not about taking over me and telling me what to do. It's helping to understand that what I do is part of what everybody is doing and looking after each other.
Tēnā rawa te koinei, and I think that's a great message for our whānau and for our kaimahi, that we're all in this together, and we certainly have a lot of work to do. Harai te mea, koinei anahe, te mea e tāmi nei a tātou, we've got so much to overcome. But let's go, baby, just about to look forward. A tērā tau, whā te koutou o te kaupapa o te Kōhanga Reo.
Can I quickly?
Yes.
It's a wonderful time to celebrate, but I just want to say to us, in shorthand speak, ngā kōrero putongo hini, 40 years is 10 years, the first 10 years, excitement. The kōhanga flew across the country and across the world. Why did it? Because it was run by whānau. It wasn't run by the government. It was run by whānau, by our old people who came, and they worked they volunteered. They never got paid a single penny. But boy, they took that language and was caught in the kōhanga. Lady Rose used to say, be careful, don't turn kōhanga into a schooly type early education and try to teach them. When they're born 0 to 5, our mokopuna, they don't need teachers. The language is caught, not taught. If you look at our kōhanga today, it's about qualifications and teaching, so that the poor old kaiako on their own are trying to do the best they can. But it's, as Titoki said, and she was right, kōhanga have become more schooly type than whānau type. But people do that because when the government, the first 10 years, Māoridom had total control of this movement. Sir Graham Latimer, Dame Tiata, all those giants of Māoridom cared and looked after. We had the one board for 20 years because they understood it. Now we're in the situation of adapting to another model where, everybody votes who's on and all the rest of it. That's fine, because the world moves on. But the power of the movement in the first 10 years laid in those kaitiaki, and you know who they were, they thought Maori, they monitored this in Maori, etc. And kōhanga flew in the first 10 years to over 800 kōhanga in this country. They owned it, our people were excited, they worked together, the government had no sort of say in it at all. The trustees did. And then what happened, in the next 10 years, a disaster started to come in. overnight, when the Maori Affairs Department was disestablished, the trustees thought they were going to come under the Iwi Transition Agency. So at Tatariana, the next minute, without government coming to talk to the trustees, to allow the trustees to talk to whānau, without that, they just overnight moved Kōhanga movement into the Ministry of Education. No consultation, no notice, no respect for those giants, those rangatira of Te Pōri. And there was a shock. That was the second 10 years, and I was interviewed, and if anyone wants to see, I was interviewed by North and South when it happened. And I came into a big backlash from, not Maori, when I said, what's happened to this movement without consultation, putting it into another government department, this will be the beginning of the decline of the movement. And have I proved right? Of course I have. The first 10 years, the Kōhanga started to go down. From 800 in the first 10 years, started to decline because our people weren't valued. The old people who were there volunteering their reo and their rangatira, they were said to not be qualified. And so, kahuri o rātou tuara, they turned their back. If you don't value people, folks, you won't get value back. Simple as that. For all of us to know. If you don't value the people that you're talking to, they won't value you. And so the movement started to go down. So in the second 10 years, what happened? Up rose the Kōhanga whānau around the country. They were angry and insisted that we go and have a claim to call it back into the hands of Maori in the way this movement started. Then came the claim, and we paid in the 10 years. So that claim was heard, and it was supported absolutely, totally by the Waitangi Tribunal. But before it could happen, we had some internal issues that we had to fix up in the movement. So there was a stalling on that, but you know, we were able to do it, but we had to, the government said, fix this, fix that. Government said, get a new board. Yes, it start telling us what they think we should be doing. And so it took time to do that. So then we come in the third year into working through how we might go forward. Now we're nearly we're in the fourth 10 years, first 10 years, second 10 years, third 10 years. Hello, Mickey Mouse. We're still here no matter what. But we're 40 years next year. We've got a lot to be proud of. I pay a huge tribute to those people who are still looking after the Kōhanga, even though it's not an easy job. And it's not the same. Well, it is and it isn't. Because our people are still doing it. It's still about te reo, but it's lost a lot of the enjoyment, the excitement that our people had because they owned it and they managed it. So next year, as I say, this is our 40th year. Hello, we're still trying to deal with the claim. We're still sort of trying to deal with government demands. And one of them, as I say, is that kaiako who don't want to be injected or vaxxed, the government has taken over. The government is saying, it's become law that if you're not vaxxed, you don't get a job. Now, you know, so Kōhanga, in trying to look after our people and our kaiako and all, you know, looking at, get a vax. It ain't going to kill you, but it is going to give you the opportunity to be able to continue in employment, because now it's not the Kōhanga Trust that is talking about no job, no vax, no job. It's a blooming government rule. That's what it is. So, you know, the choice, when there's hardly any jobs available, I say to our kaiako, look after your employment, because you're so important. And if you don't want the jab, that's your decision. But your decision has a huge, huge impact on you in terms of employment, but on you of your value to the whānau. Big decisions ahead. We think today is challenging. Watch out for the next 10 years. Who knows?
Tika tonu tāne, and kuina noi ho tā mātou pia māharahara nui. A lot of our kaiako are being put into this situation, and they're gun kaiako. They're awesome at their mahi.
Yeah.
But we end up tuki kia tātou ano, and our mokopuna miss out.
Yeah.
Our mokopuna miss out on these, because it's hard to make a kaiako, isn't it? They're not. You can't just kind of get them off the shelf.
Well, I think we become wrongly focused on those who are qualified to deliver the reo. They're not the only ones. If I never had a qualified person in my mokopuna would learn. We never had qualified people when the kohanga started. We had qualified Māori rangatira. The qualifications were different. It wasn't a Pākehā qualification. It was the whakamana or te whānau. And so we're still sort of, walking through this world with changes that are coming, some that might be supportive of what we're doing, most of them are challenging. And the kaiako, the trust has no option, because the government says you jump. That's the reality. And so I would say to them, look after their jobs, understand how important they are, but also understand how dangerous they might be to those that come in contact with them. But in the end, if people say, my tino rangatiratanga, I want the freedom to be able to make my decision. There's no such thing as absolute freedom in this country. There's some freedoms we have. There are some we haven't. We haven't got the freedom to drive a car without a license. There's a lot of things we haven't got the freedom to do. So freedom is relative. It's not absolute freedom to have the right to make your decision about everything, because we haven't. There's no such thing as absolute freedom. So there's rangatiratanga, which says I have the right, absolutely, only in the situation and context of what is happening. That's one. Nobody takes my rangatiratanga away from me. Nobody. But I have a responsibility to myself and my whānau and those that I come in. I mean, I've been vexed. I didn't want to.
Yeah.
No, I'll tell you why. I thought when it came along, I'm not bothering. Leave the vaxxers for the younger generation, because there weren't many around at them. I said, Anyway, my doctor got in touch and explained it to me, and I said, but I don't really know. If I pop off tomorrow, it doesn't matter. I've had a big life. Who cares? And she said, but it's not just that. It's about, if you don't, you pick up this bug, you could pass it on. And so that's what changed my mind. And I think that is the key. Do we look after ourselves as looking after others or not? Koinei noho tāku.
Rawe. You've always been so health conscious, Nan. You've always been so health conscious. Wahine toa on the tennis court and on the golf course, and you've always looked after yourself. And kai konei tonu koe e ākia nei wā tātai nei whānau ki e rā poropiti me ki. Sometimes I think Kōhanga Reo is a religion, I think it's he hāhi tēnei i te mea me whakapono koe ki nā mātā pono o te kaupapa nā pau e whā. And their faith that is instilled that kākano, kei roto I tēnā, it is ka naki here, ka whānau here, ki te aroha me rā mea katoa. And so, you know, we are coming ki te wā tō tātou nei, whānau mai tō tātou nei kai whakaora. Nō reira, ka waiho tēnei wāhana ki a koe pia, hei mihi atu ki o tātou whānau mo te wā te krihi me te challenging times, and I know people want to, kia tere tā rātou, tū hono, tū taki anō I a rātou. E tahi wā mea ahua, kia nāwari te haere. Hoi anō ka waiho tēnei. I'll give you this last. Ki te mihi atu.
I just want to say to everybody, please look after the board and look after Angus. These challenges are huge, and it needs all of us to work together. Of course, we can disagree, but that doesn't mean to say we don't care about each other and we don't care about our kaupapa. So look after our board. You've got a board there that's really working hard to work through. You've got Angus, who is absolutely putting everything into this that he can. A person that is that you can trust, Angus, never have to sort of worry about whether you trust them or not. And finally, I want to say that in asking you to look after the board, I have the privilege of sitting with them. But as you know, and if you don't know, I'm actually representing Kingi Tuheitia, who asked me to represent him on the board. And I felt really honored because I thought he's got his own family. But you know, when people ask you to do something, especially him, and because of my time with Dame Tiata, I felt I couldn't say no. I just want to say, and most of you should know, if you don't know, Kingi Tuheitia had the jab soon as he could, because he moves amongst people, and people come to see him. And so, as well as looking after himself, because, you know, his health, he has to care for himself. But he also, above that, cares about everybody else. And so that's the message I want to say, folks. Look after yourself and look after everybody else that you might come in contact with. Nā reira, koinei noho kia koutou, e mihi nui ana, kia koutou e pōkai kaha nei, a hakua ngā piki ngā heke o te wā, kei te ūtonu koutou ki te kaupapa nei. Me pēhera te mihi kia koutou, he mihi mutunga kore kia koutou. Mo tēnei wā, mo te krihi me, mo te tauhou, o tira mo ngā tau kei mua ia koutou. Āpōpō nei, kore rātou ki te ao wairua. Engari kei a koutou. Te huarahi, hei kōpiri tia, haere ake nei, mō ngā mokopuna e whānau mai I nāi nei, mō ngā mokopuna kei roto I a koutou I te nāi nei, mō ngā mokopuna hei kaue I te mana Māori, tino rangatiratanga ne kōrero ni tātou, kei ngā mokopuna nei. Ka poipoi tika e tātou, ka rere rātou ki te ao whānui. Nā reira, koe ni te mihi nui, kia koutou, hei kona.
Tēnei hoki te mihi nui, man, tēnei mokopuna au, kia koe, kia tautonu na manaaki tana o te runa rawa kia koe, me ki rā, e matapiko tonu ana te ao Māori, tēnei huna e noho nei kia noho koe o tētahi wā anō, hoi anō, kai aia tonu te kōrero whakamutuna inari tēnei wā enen, kia pai te wā krihi me te, kia hānia nea te noho I waina nui te whānau, kia haumari te haere, aroha nui. Nā mihi, tēnā rawa atu.
Yora boy.
Nō reira I tewi koe ara tā māua Iritana ko Nanny Iri tana. And, you know, amazing, amazing still to be in the presence of one of the pioneers and one of the titans of kaupapa Māori, who is tikana nā kōrero, who is as sharp as ever. She is as sharp as ever, and Yahweh, ki tana kei te Yahweh, ahua tiroana kei te whakaronoi, just taking and trying to absorb all the kōrero that she has blessed us with. Hoi anō, me mihi atu ki aia, she set up her own Zoom, and e tikana, she set up her own Zoom, so I'll be a bit tita, so, oh, yeah, ne, kei te ahua, but she set up her own Zoom, and she was able to come on ki te kōrero ki a tātou I tēnei rā. Nō reira, hoi anō e te whānau he mihi nui tēnei kia koutou katoa. Hei tērā wiki ka rapu anō tātou i tētahi atu kai kōrero. Hoi anō kia hānea nea tonu te noho ki waina nui i te whānau, kia piki tonu te ora, kia kaha te ora, kia whai te orana. Nō reira, ka whakairihia te ki te kōrero i tēnei wā, ki te tarawhāiti o tō tātou nei whare, tūturu e rani, tūturu e rono, tūturu ka whakamaua kia tīna haumi e hui e, kia pai nā rā whakatā.